Being trans, to describe it, it would mean you were born the gender that you don't feel like in your heart.
When James was 8 years old, he asked to transition, which meant social transition, which is not permanent. He got to use he as and him for pronouns. He then, this past year, changed his name legally and his gender markers legally.
But I started to realize it in first grade when I told my mom I wanted to have my hair short and that I wanted to look less girly.
From the time he was 7 until he was 8, he would say things like, I'm half boy, half girl, half gorilla. And I would think, you're not good at math like your mom. He just now, a month ago, started hormone blockers. It's an implant. It is to prevent his puberty. It will prevent a menstruation cycle and breast development. And he is counting down the days until he can start testosterone, which would be the first time something permanent would be happening, because at that point, it would affect fertility.
Well, I'm officially sorry to have to run you through this, but I don't think I can let it go. I just read an article. It's from Reuters. It was posted November 18th, 2022. And I literally just have to share my opinion with you. And I need to get a few things out of the way. First of all, not transphobic, not homophobic either. I feel like you should be able to have whatever sexual preference you want. And third, what the fuck is going on with America and what is going on in our society today? This article that I'm about to read you through covers the transitioning of 8-year-old children, 7-year-old children, okay? Children that are under 18 by a large stretch. This leaves nothing up to imagination. These kids they're kids, and they're transitioning from boy to girl, girl to boy. They think and they believe that they're transgendered because they have some sort of gender dysphoria. Or do they? Or is this just the absurdity and psychosis of their parents? I don't really know, but I need to read you guys through this article, and I literally am lost for words. I need you to walk through this journey with me and just go through this article, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. But first, we're going to watch a quick clip to get an understanding of what this is really all about.
Olivia said she was transgender from the age of 4 until 5, and we allowed her to wear whatever she wanted, but she didn't socially transition until she was 5 years old and entering kindergarten.
I transitioned first, so I think that helped Olivia see that it was okay to be trans.
That's amazing. Is it bigger than yesterday's, or is that?
I think it's actually smaller.
That made it easier for her to come out and tell my parents because she knew that they would be accepting.
Luckily with Olivia, she's so young. She's only 7. The first thing would be a hormone blocker, and that's not until she would hit stage 2 of puberty. As of right now, we just follow her lead.
All right. That clip was fucked up. But that's not really where this ends. And in fact, this article is going to show us that that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. And that's what I want to walk you through today. So let's start off by reading through this article. And yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm definitely going to trigger people here today, but it needs to be said. So here we go. A gender imbalance emerges amongst trans teens seeking treatment. Okay. Adolescents assigned female at birth. Okay. This is the language we're using now these days. Assigned female at birth. Nope. They're just female. Account for a significant majority of minors receiving gender affirming care, including top surgery. Top surgery is where they cut your tits off. Fueling debate about the influence of peer groups and social media. Yeah, I would think that's probably an appropriate response to adolescents cutting their tits off. I think that's definitely something worth debating.
Holy fucking smokes, dude. My cut is insane. Shout out to my barber, dog.
After moving to Bridge City, Texas, 8-year-old Samuel Kulovitz thought his life couldn't get any worse. He had made no friends in the swampy oil refinery town and spent most of his time in his family's mobile home. He missed Florida and playing on the beach with other children. But life did get worse. He hit puberty. For Kulowitz, who was assigned female at birth, growing into being a young woman horrified me. I kept crying and crying. and I didn't know why I didn't like it. Well, that's because you're a fucking kid and you don't know anything. When his mother learned of his transgender identity, she was supportive and enrolled him in therapy. He was diagnosed at the age of 12 with gender dysphoria, the distress that comes from identifying as a gender different from the one assigned at birth. Two and a half years later, Kulowitz started on the hormone testosterone. Okay, so at 14 years old, this young girl, this child is being put on testosterone at 14. We're now using he was thrilled as he grew facial hair and chest hair. His voice dropped and his menstrual periods stopped. His menstrual periods stopped. Still, his breasts were a constant source of distress, and his body ached from wearing a chest binder. Okay, a chest binder is this fancy piece of apparel that squishes your tits if you are a girl and pretending you're playing dress up to be a boy. I always thought, I wish I could get rid of them, Kulowitz said, the 14-year-old. One day during his junior year of high school, Kulowitz, then 16, was scrolling on his phone when the TikTok account of Miami surgeon who offered to yeet the teats of young transgender people popped up. Here's a clip of that. In videos with hip-hop music playing in the background, Dr. Sib Gallagher provided detailed information about top surgery to remove or modify breasts and displayed photos of her satisfied gender-diverse patients, most of them young people, with shirts off to show the results of the doctor's work. Come to Miami and see the rest of the D-Titty Committee, she said in one of the videos. 6 months later, in June 2021, Kulowitz was in Miami with his mother. Okay, so this little girl was 16. So 16 at this point. So started with this gender affirmation shit at 8 years old, and then started on testosterone at 14. Now at 16, we're in Miami. Okay, just so you guys are following along with this timeline. So at 16, Kulowitz was in Miami with his mother, who gave consent for his son's surgery and paid $10,000 out of pocket for it. I wonder if there's any incentive here going to the doctor. Oh yeah, there is. $10,000 per fucking kid to chop their tits off. Something up here. He also had the letters of support Gallagher required from his therapist and doctor, also incentivized by money. When Kulowitz woke up after the procedure, I felt euphoric, he said. I finally felt in my right
Scar. And tell the crazy story on how you got it.
This lovely angel.
And here's an image, apparently, of a young, now boy's tits being chopped off. That's excellent. So if you're just watching this on your drive, you've just been spared a gruesome photo. As Reuters reported in October, a growing number of children receiving care at the 100-plus gender clinics across the United States are opting for medical interventions, puberty-blocking drugs, hormones, and less often, surgery. And they are doing so even though strong scientific evidence of the long-term safety and efficacy of these treatments for children is scant, meaning they have no fucking idea what this is going to do long-term to these kids. They're just signing them up because they feel like playing dress-up today, and that's going to make them feel better in the short term.
Around the age of 2, she started asking for different types of toys, and then I think the first big thing that we noticed was that she wanted to dress as Cinderella for Halloween.
Newsflash, I'm going to play for you some horror stories as well, so just buckle up because we'll get there. The outsized proportion of adolescents seeking treatment to transition from female to male has sparked parallel concerns. Professionals in the gender care community agree that treatment of all transgender children should be supportive and affirming. Okay, so if you feel like playing dress up today, you must be affirmed, and all parents should be supportive of that. To not do so would be transphobic. The question for some is whether peer groups and online media may be influencing some of these patients to pursue medical transition with potentially irreversible side effects at a time in their lives when their identities are often in flux. Yeah, no shit, they're fucking kids. I wanted to be a cat when I was a kid. Top surgeries. So here we go. This is a chart displaying the top surgeries. Remember, that's cutting your tits off when you're a young child. So U.S. patients aged 13 to 17 undergoing mastectomy, removal of the tits, with a prior gender dysphoria diagnosis. So 2019, 238 of these things happened. 2020, 256 of these happened. 2021, 282 of these happened. So hundreds of kids are getting their tits cut off. Okay, approved by a doctor, a psychologist, and their fucking parents. And then thousands are being put on hormone blockers and androgynous hormone additions like fucking testosterone. This is absurd. Corey Bash, a professor of public health at William Patterson University in New Jersey, who researches the health communication and teens' use of social media, said she fears that some adolescents are susceptible to making faulty self-diagnoses without adequate input from medical professionals. Yeah, no shit. When a kid sees something online, they're definitely going to believe it.
Right before her 8th birthday, she came out from her room one morning and she said, "I'm Lily all the time now, only use girl pronouns, and I'm not going to be Jack anymore."
Okay, and when they're already an outcast, when they're awkward, and when their body's developing, and everything feels weird and lonely and scary because it's a brand new fucking world to them, I imagine they are a little bit confused. You were too. So was I. And here's the thing: is when we say that it's transphobic to not support them and not affirm them, that's how we get here. This is disgusting. Teens are so incredibly vulnerable to information overload and being pushed in one direction, Bash said, that they could be lacking the analytical skills to question who is giving this advice and if their advice is valid. Yeah, that's why we don't let them vote or buy alcohol or drive vehicles. Like, fuck me. In October, researchers at the Vanderbilt University School of Medicine published a paper showing a 389% increase in gender-affirming chest surgeries performed nationally from 2016 to 2019 on patients under the age of 18. The total of 1,130 procedures during that period, nearly all of them for chest masculinization. Holy shit, that's a word that you should never have to say because it's fucking not natural. Represents a weighted estimate based on records from more than 2,000 U.S. medical facilities. Likewise, at least 776 chest masculinization surgeries were performed on patients ages 13 to 17 with a gender dysphoria diagnosis over the past 3 years. According to the U.S. insurance claims analyzed by Reuters by health technology company Komodo Health Inc. This is probably an undercount because it does not include procedures paid for out of pocket, which we've already heard there was at least one just in this article. So what we're talking about here is 776 instances of kids 13 to 17 that had their tits cut off, paid for just by insurance, and that doesn't count anybody that paid privately. So this next section here is called the diversity of identities. Advocates for transgender rights and clinicians who treat adolescents see nothing out of the ordinary in this trend. It's totally cool. Ages, kids under 17 should be getting their tits cut off. That's what these clinicians are saying. While transgender children face significant prejudice and threats of violence, they say, increasing social acceptance of transgender identity has encouraged more kids to seek treatment. Great.
For me, I was definitely nervous just because she was a baby, She was 6 years old and I just could not wrap my mind around the fact that she knew she was a girl.
And how could a child that age
know that?
Yeah.
At the time of treatment, this reasoning goes, society is generally less accepting of what it deems an effeminate boy than of a masculine girl. And the greater stigma that those assigned male at birth, face may make them less likely to pursue treatment, reducing their share of the patient population. These children may not necessarily identify as transgender, but more broadly as gender diverse. Gender diverse. That's a new one for me. I'm gender diverse today. Why not? A growing list of terms reflects this diversity of gender identities. Agender, non-binary, gender fluid, polygender, demi-boy, and demi-girl. Well, fuck. It was pretty cool when I was a kid because you really only had two options. You either had a penis or you had ovaries. Those were the options. You were one or the other, 0 or 1. Here we go. Let's keep reading, though, because it doesn't end there. There's been an explosion in the gender expansive model, said Dr. Michelle Forcier, a professor of pediatrics at Brown University's Alpert Medical School, who has specialized in the care of transgender and gender diverse patients. Folks may feel safer and feel more freer to express and take on a more diverse identity because the social conversation has been put out there. For these patients, she said, the moral and ethical thing to do is to give them a list of options that may help them achieve their gender goals. Their gender goals. These 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, all the way up to 17-year-old kids, they have gender goals. And you need to affirm those. And it's okay because society has opened up that conversation. But other gender care providers and some parents are skeptical. Really? That's great. That's really weird. A lot of transphobes out there. In interviews with Reuters, they express worry that some adolescents assigned female at birth may be dealing with significant mental health issues in addition to questions about their gender identity, or may be seeking to transition as a refuge in a culture of internalized misogyny. Body hatred and early sexualization of girls. Yeah, what could be a greater sexualization of these poor little fucking kids than chopping their tits off and telling them that that's what's going to make them feel better and make them fit into society? Girls have a harder time with the physical and emotional changes that come with the onset of puberty. And Dr. Erica Anderson, a clinical psychologist, transgender woman, and former board member of WPATH, and we have to talk about WPATH. Fuck these people. We'll have to do a whole other video on these guys, but honestly, they're disgusting. And I think there's an element of truth that males have it better in many quarters of society than females. We have it better. And that's why all the girls want to transition. That's what's going on here. These kids see that. At 8 years old, they're sitting there and they're saying, you know what, Mom? You know what, Dad? I'm 8 years old. I maybe want to be a cat. I want to be an astronaut. But one thing I know for certain is that males have it better. That's what I'm sitting here thinking about when I'm in grade fucking 4. Sorry, I just can't. This shit's crazy. Kids try and do things. Kids do try things on, and not everything sticks. They experiment, she says. I do not believe that we have an obligation to accept at face value everything a young person says to us. Yeah, maybe not, because they're fucking 8 years old. On platforms such as TikTok and Instagram, young people receiving gender treatment regularly share with followers, sometimes numbering in tens of thousands, details about taking medication and having surgery. Their presence is augmented by doctors who use social media to communicate directly with potential patients. Ching, 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 ching. Hopefully I found a soundbite to fucking overlay over my voice for that one. But some prominent clinicians are also saying that along with those benefits, social media may lead to some use to mistake mental health problems or uncertainty about their identity for gender dysphoria. No shit. Kids want to fit into the group, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Kelly, a 43-year-old parent who asked that her full name must not be used to protect her family's privacy, told Reuters that her child was heavily into highly sexualized anime and transgender online forums when the 12-year-old started experimenting, seemingly overnight, with being a transgender boy. The child's therapist encouraged medical intervention, Kelly said. But while Kelly supported social transition outside the home, social transition is where we start using those different names, like those fucking they, them, she, her, them, he, hi, him, z, y, x, y, x, p, q, r, l, m, n, o, p. All of those are the social transitions, which honestly, I guess is probably fine, especially compared to the abuse and permanent removal of sexual organs or hormone introduction that would block menstruation and block, ovarian shit that's very important for these kids as part of their natural development. This is also going to affect bone density and all sorts of other performance things, but that's for another video as well. But social transition, I somehow feel a little bit better about that because you could just stop fucking saying that stuff in a way that you can't just regrow your tits after you chop them off or your balls. Ah, God damn it. Okay, here we go. Whew. The child's therapist encouraged this medical intervention, but while Kelly supported social transition outside the home, she made it clear that her child would have to wait until she was 18 for hormones and top surgery. After several years of living as a boy and using he, him pronouns, Kelly's child, now 18, is back to using her female name. Yeah, because she grew up. She got used to her body. She got through puberty and actually experienced what it's like to be a woman. Huh, fucking wild. My God. Whew. So she went back to using her female name, dressing in feminine clothing, and using she and her pronouns. We would have lost our daughter if we had followed what the therapist was telling us to do. Yeah, that is the dark reality here. The dark reality, the real truth, is that these children have no fucking idea and cannot possibly give consent to a medical procedure like that because they have no clue what it means to go through puberty. They have no clue what it means to go through the social awkwardness of being a teenager yet. They have no clue what it means to come out of that on the other end as a developed human being, right? Not that you're developed even at 18. Your brain doesn't even stop growing till you're 25. You're barely fucking able to make decisions. And this is permanent, these things that we're talking about here. So let me continue on here. That these teens were possibly emulating each other didn't bother Katyala. This is perfectly normal in adolescence, she told Reuters. What did bother her was that many of the teens had concluded quickly that they were transgender and viewed their identity as fixed, attempting to cut short the process of identity formation that typically lasts years. Yeah, so kids are going to copy each other to stay in the group. You've done dumb shit with friends before. I know you have. And stuff that you probably would not have done solo if somebody else hadn't influenced you. This is just the reality of life. She also encountered a handful of young patients who regretted medically transitioning. They have said, I was so sure that you could not have changed my mind. I was so confident that this is the way, but nevertheless, I think it was a mistake. I take that really seriously. It's a horrible situation for everybody. Yeah, kids are pretty determined. Have you ever taken their toy? Have you ever taken their their toy, their food, their whatever, and use that as some sort of punishment? They fucking lose it, right? They're dead set straight that they're going to die without having that toy, right? Go take your kid's video game console away for a day. They're going to freak the fuck out. Or take their cell phone, I guess, would be the modern version of that. They're going to lose it, and they're going to tell you that you're the worst person in the world. They hate you. They're going to cry. They don't hate you. They're going to get over it in a day or two. God damn it. Unlike if you give them hormones. In 2020, the council concluded that in light of available evidence, gender reassignment of minors is still an experimental practice. Yeah, I would say that's experimental. Now, psychosocial support is the first-line treatment for most adolescents with gender dysphoria. Yeah, I think we should probably talk this out and maybe, I don't know, give it some time before we transition kids. Medical interventions are possible in Finland on a case-by-case basis if, after psychotherapy, the patient's gender-related anxiety persists. Personality development appears stable and no severe mental health disorders would complicate the treatment. And then the next section here is about resisting the fad narrative, because this is a goddamn fad. This isn't real life. Transgender advocates and some doctors reject the idea that social media and peer influence may play a role in predominance of female-to-male transitions among adolescent patients. They say that it feeds a dangerous transphobic myth and that opponents of gender care weaponize this false fad narrative to limit children's access to treatment. One of the false narratives is that young people are being lured in and directed somehow against their will to become transgender, which is not at all the case. Really, it's not at all the case, despite all those TikTok videos and alluring videos of doctors dancing around with the kids that just had their tits cut off. That was real because we saw it here, right here in this video. Starting in her early teens, Mosley, who was assigned female at birth, struggled with anorexia, anxiety, and depression. She attempted suicide by drowning, and a sexual assault added to her trauma. Yeah, and this is the thing. I really think that these kids, and again, if we just look back in the videos that we've already seen, the kids that are transitioning are coming from broken homes with shitty leaders as parents. That's what's going on here. When you look at these kids, it's like, just look at the parents. It's always the telltale sign. It's some fucking beta male, some blue-haired mom And they're always obese. You can tell they lack complete and utter control over their own lives. You can tell that they've absolutely done nothing to put their kid in a great and successful and hard environment to grow up in and foster challenge and real adversity. You can tell that they're soft. And that's what's going on here. This is parents being fucking delusional and not leading and not being responsible. And it honestly should be criminal at all levels. If at 18, they still decide that this is a necessary thing or that they want to pursue this, I can get behind that. And even at 18, I mean, you're not thinking right. Like, you're doing dumb shit at 18, and I just want you to rack your own memory of the dumb shit you did at 18 and really ask yourself, like, were you a fully formed, responsible adult? No, you were not. I guarantee it. Yeah, who was your girlfriend when you were 18? I bet that's a great marker. Or your boyfriend, or your they. Who was your them at 18, I guess, is the new thing. Isolated and miserable, she sought friends online, where she met a group of people on Tumblr who told her that if she hated her body, felt suicidal, and it didn't fit within her gender, she was transgender. Okay, so more influence online from people that are fucking delusional. I wanted to do the treatment that would fix that. Mosley, now 24, told Reuters, okay, 24, this is getting better. This is definitely getting better. And here's Mosley. Moving right along. When Mosley turned 18, she had surgery to remove her breasts. Her mother objected to the surgery, but accompanied her anyway. What was he going to do? Let her go alone? Mosley said the physical transition did not alleviate her depression. No shit. Maybe the sexual abuse had something to do with it. Maybe the fucking broken household had something to do with it. Maybe you could have changed your environment or got your kid into a sport or did anything with your kid other than drag her down to a fucking sex change clinic. Mosley said her mental health began to improve only after several years of behavioral therapy. Like a dog. Yeah, you got one of these rescue dogs, right? Behavior therapy, that's the solution. At 22, she stopped taking testosterone and determined that she regretted transitioning. I decided that I didn't want to be a woman before I had ever even experienced being a woman. Who is now, fuck me. Now I feel like I will never entirely know. Yeah, well, that's what happens. You can't reverse this stuff, and that's the gross part of it. After receiving an overwhelming number of violent threats in August, and this is a whole other section here called within the gender care community, the top surgery is considered safe and effective way to alleviate major source of anguish in transgender boys. So, cut them tits off. You're going to feel better. After receiving an overwhelming number of violent threats in August, Dr. Scott Moser of the Gender Confirmation Center in San Francisco, naturally would have to be in San Francisco, announced that he had paused accepting new adolescent patients for gender surgery. He had paused accepting new adolescent patients for gender surgery. Just took violent threats. In a statement posted on the website, Moser said, "We are profoundly disturbed by the extent to which misinformation, prejudice, and fanaticism threaten trans, non-binary, and gender expansive." That's another one. That's another new one for me. Gender expansive people's access to life-saving care. Moving right along. Oh, here's I think this is our 8-year-old little boy that transitioned, little girl. What do you want to say? I don't know what to say without getting in deep shit here. But here's an image of the top surgery, and this is Dr. Gallagher, as we know, who's the TikTok super famous doctor that is pushing all this stuff for obvious financial reasons. Gallagher describes to her 273,000 TikTok followers that the options she offers for designer chest. Let me just remind you what a designer chest looks like. That's a designer chest, y'all. All right? That's a designer chest. Whew. Top surgery can include torso masculoplasty to smooth out feminine curves. You don't want those feminine curves. For the non-binary, Gallagher can remove the nipples altogether. No nips, no problem. Oh, God. As one post's text display puts it, And for the gender fluid, she offers non-flat surgery, leaving enough breast tissue so that on some days, patients can have perky breasts with cleavage, and on other days, they can bind their breasts. Okay. That is wild. Here's some examples. Here's where we yeet the teats, this says. Okay. Let's hear another one. Can top surgeries be done? Yes, but only with patients. Hold on, let's restart that. Who are ready? Okay. What does ready mean? We also need parental consent and a letter from mental health. So this lady is actively marketing this to kids, right? That's why she's mentioning parental consent. That's the only time you would ever fucking mention that. So yeah, I guess we're cool with this as a society. 2 lawyers filed similar complaints earlier this year with Florida Attorney General's office alleging that Gallagher is improperly marketing surgery to teens on TikTok and Instagram. I'll fucking say so. And in particular to kids with mental health disorders. Yeah, that checks out for sure. After a diagnosis, and this is another section here, after a diagnosis of gender dysphoria and more than 2 years of therapy, Kulowitz went on testosterone at age 14. The masculizing effects gave him big confidence boost. Kulowitz was still the only transgender student he knew of when, as a high school freshman, he felt emboldened enough to start the school's first LGBTQ club. At first, nobody came, but over time, the club had grown to include 30 students, half of whom had identified as transgender, non-binary, or gender fluid. I was like, wow, so great you were here. I'm glad y'all feel comfortable, he said. Today, Kulowitz identifies as a transgender man who is gay. So let me okay. Today, Kulowitz identifies as a transgender man who is gay. What the fuck does that actually mean? So really it's just a girl, but like now has kind of like a guy. I don't get it. In August, he started college on a full scholarship in a small Texas town about a 4-hour drive from Bridge City. The university doesn't offer LGBTQ housing. So Kulowitz, who changed his gender marker to male on his birth certificate when he transitioned, shares a dorm room with a cisgender male football player. Cisgender, by the way, is what we just call, fucking everybody else that isn't shopping their tits off and shit. So anyways, that's that article. And I just wanted to bring your attention to another article here that was from Reuters. And hopefully just, I can't believe it. Okay. Here we go. More broadly, no large-scale studies have tracked people who have received gender-related medical care as children to determine how they remain satisfied with their treatment as they aged. So we have no idea. We actually have no idea what this is doing. And shooting people up with hormones is definitely not something we've evolved with. That's a fucking guarantee, whatever your social position is. Okay, Jesus. No large-scale studies have tracked people who receive gender-related medical care as children to determine how many remain satisfied with their treatment as they aged and how many eventually regretted transitioning. The same lack of clarity holds true for contentious issues of detransitioning when a patient stops or reverses the transition process. The NIH, National Institute of Health, same guys that brought you the fucking COVID nonsense. The U.S. government agency responsible for medical and public health research told Reuters that the evidence is limited on whether these treatments pose short or long-term health risk for transgender and other gender-diverse adolescents. The NIH has funded a comprehensive study to examine mental health and other outcomes for about 400 transgender youth treated at 4 U.S. Children's Hospital. However, long-term test results are years away and may not address concerns such as fertility or cognitive development. Yeah, guess what? If you take testosterone out of a young boy, you will absolutely be fucking causing cognitive issues. That is, there's no jury out on that. That's ridiculous. Okay, here is the scary thing. Scary numbers. U.S. children ages 6 to 17 diagnosed with gender dysphoria from 2017 to 2021, 121,000, okay, 121,000. And then 17,683 U.S. children started on puberty blockers or hormones over the 5-year period. 17,000. That's over 3,000 a year starting on puberty blockers or hormones over a 5-year period. Guys, what is going on? How is this acceptable? Reliable national data on how many children receive care for gender dysphoria defined as feelings of distress. Fuck me, when you're a kid, you're distressed constantly. As homework gives you distress. As a feeling of distress from identifying as a gender different from the one assigned at birth. Well, yeah, this is leadership. This is leadership issues. Have long been unavailable. To get some idea of the increasing prevalence of these cases, Reuters asked health technology company Komodo Health to analyze its database of U.S. insurance claims and other medical records on about 330 million Americans. The analysis, first of its kind, found that at least 121,000 children ages 6 to 17 were diagnosed with gender dysphoria in the past 5 years. More than 42,000 of those children were diagnosed just in the last year, up 70% from 2020. And what that tells me is that this is a completely social issue. This is a cultural issue. This has been caused by whatever's going on in our soft society, and it's the classic cycle of hard men create good times create soft men create fucking transgender kids, I guess. And honestly, I think what's really disturbing to me here is we don't really understand at all the long-term effects of blocking hormones, adding androgynous hormones, the social consequences to encouraging our kids to just make believe and get their way. What's going to happen when these kids regretfully want to transition back, or they realize that they made the wrong choice and that their parents let them, and that the doctors and psychologists around them did so as well because they were incentivized by money, and the parents were forced because of social pressure to not be transphobic? What's going to happen? Who's standing up for these kids? And I think that's what's really scary. If you're in this position, I really encourage you to get the fuck out of where you are, because this must be a social or otherwise an environmental issue. If it wasn't the case, we would have seen millions of suicides in the past. I don't see any data for that. I don't see any time in the history where kids were just falling out of fucking line and killing themselves because of gender dysphoria. This is a made-up concept that we just came up with. We invented it. And if that triggers you, I'm sorry, but your kid doesn't know anything. They don't have the right to vote. They don't have the right to consent to sex. They don't have the right to buy alcohol or drugs. They don't have the right to drive. And it's because they seriously lack cognitive ability. They're not developed yet. They can't make this type of informed decision. And that's the reality here. And to see this any other way, or to make this into some sort of transphobic social issue, is to be completely insane. And you're throwing away the health and prosperity of your child's life. And we've seen that by the suicides that do happen after these kids realize as they grow up that they made the wrong choice. They never got to experience what it was like to actually be the fucking gender they were born. And I think it's tragedy. I think it's sad. And I really don't have an answer for this video, but I really need to share this because I don't know, like with any luck, this will just at least give somebody somewhere, a parent somewhere maybe, the courage to stand up to this shit and be like, no, we are not doing this. This is completely mental. We're moving. We're getting out of this situation. And yeah, your kid's going to be pissed off, but they will get over it. And if they don't get over it, they can make that transition later when they're an adult with a full fucking brain.
I need to tell you that I think I was supposed to have been born a girl. And I said, honey, why do you think that? And she said, well, because I have a girl brain and I have a girl heart. And I knew at that moment that I needed to raise her differently.
People come out of the woodwork to let you know that you're harming your child by allowing her to be transgender. And it's something that we've just rolls off our back at this point.
I will need to essentially maim part of my body that is currently whole and functioning in order to create the aesthetic look of a breast-like mound. And they are even called that because they don't resemble breasts.
You've grown breasts, haven't you, as a result of the hormone therapy that you were being given?
Yeah, so I just started developing like a girl would, and which was the thing that I wanted at that time, but now that's not so helpful.
You've had the surgery. What does it feel like to miss your penis?
I 100% feel like I was part of some cruel medical and social experiment. I wish somebody hugged me a few years back and be like, you know what, you can present feminine, you can wear heels, hair, whatever you want, but the sad reality, we don't have technology to make you an actual woman. But they kind of like didn't protect me from myself.
I have to